3 years ago, I had just gone through a breakup. Pretty rough one. I needed a change of scenery, and I found this little rental house through a friend of a friend. Nothing fancy. 2 bed, 1 bath, tiny backyard. Kinda old but cozy. The landlord was this woman in her 60s. Really nice. Very normal. She said the last tenant left kind of suddenly, but she didn't go into detail. I didn't care. Rent was cheap and I just needed space. The first couple of weeks were fine. Quiet neighborhood, decent water pressure, you know, the basics. But from day one, I had this weird feeling. Not fear exactly, just like the house didn't want me there. It's hard to explain. You ever walk into a room and feel like someone was just in it, even though you're alone? That was the vibe, constantly. The weirdness started with the back room. I had no real use for it, so I just kept some boxes in there. Off-season clothes, old books, random stuff. But I noticed pretty early on that the door would always be open. I'd close it, come back the next day, and it'd be open again. At first I thought maybe the floor was uneven, or the latch was loose, but I checked. Door worked fine. So then I figured maybe I just forgot. You know how it is when you're adjusting to a new place? But then one night, I heard the door creak open while I was watching TV. I looked down the hallway and it was just swinging slowly. No draft, no windows open. That gave me pause. And then a couple of weeks in, I started noticing this weird smell in that same back room. Kind of like old wood and something else. Like wet fabric. It wasn't constant, but when it hit, it was strong. I cleaned the whole room. Scrubbed the walls, floors, vents. Nothing made a difference. Sometimes the smell would be gone for days. Then suddenly it'd be back, out of nowhere. One night I had a friend over. We were just hanging out, and he asked, "What's that smell?" I said, "You smell it too?" He nodded and said, "Dude, it smells like someone left a wet towel in the walls." I kind of laughed it off, but inside I was thinking, okay, so it's not just me. Here's where it gets really weird. A few times, usually late at night, I would hear what sounded like muffled talking. Not loud, just a few words. Low, like someone was speaking through a wall or under the floor. I could never make it out. And every time I paused the TV or sat still to hear it better, it stopped. I checked the neighbors, even knocked on one guy's door to see if his TV was up against the wall or something. He said no, and looked at me like I was weird. One night I literally stood in the hallway at 1 a.m. just listening, and I swear it sounded like someone was having a conversation in the back room. But when I opened the door, nothing. Silence. But what happened a week after still gives me chills when I think about it. I woke up around 4 a.m. one night to get water. Walked into the kitchen, flipped on the light, and for half a second I saw what looked like a person standing at the end of the hallway. It wasn't clear. Just a shape. Tall. Still. But as soon as I turned to look directly at it, it was gone. I froze. Heart racing. I even said out loud, "Hello?" Of course nothing. Was it a trick of the light? Sleep haze? I don't know. But I didn't go back to sleep that night. A few days later, I ran into a neighbor while getting the mail. We were chatting casually, and I mentioned I moved into the little beige house with the ivy. She made a face and said, "Oh, that house." I was like, "What do you mean?" She just shook her head and said, "People never seem to stay long there." I asked why, but she said she didn't know. Just that the last 2 tenants broke their leases early. No big stories, just left. I lived there for about 7 months. Nothing major happened after that. Just the same weird vibes. The backroom door, the smell, the occasional muffled sounds. I got a new job and moved across the city. The day I left, I closed the back room one last time. Even stuck a chair against it, just for my own peace of mind. When I came back in to grab the last box, the door was open again. No chair. No sound. Just that weird smell. One last time. I told the landlord when I left. She didn't seem surprised. Just said, "Thanks for being a good tenant. Most people don't last as long as you did." Well, not a ghost story exactly. Nothing jumped out at me. But I'll tell you this. That house didn't feel empty. And even now, sometimes, I wake up in the middle of the night, and I swear I can smell wet wood.